My name is Wendy Dixon. I am 32 years old, and for 3 decades, I have been the invisible structural support of a family that barely knows the sound of my voice when I'm not saying yes. In the Dixon family, I am what is known as the useful one. I am the girl who arrives at 6:00 a.m. on Thanksgiving to massage the turkey, the one who spends her Saturdays organizing the garage so my father can find his golf clubs, and the one who wraps every single Christmas gift my mother buys because she claims her arthritis makes it impossible to handle tape. I have spent my entire life as the human equivalent of a paperclip, unnoticed until I am missing, and even then, only missed because of the function I perform. My life was never lived for me. It was lived for the maintenance of an image I wasn't allowed to be part of. 3 weeks ago, we gathered at the Oak Ridge Country Club to celebrate my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. It was a high-gloss affair, a masterpiece of suburban theater. 30 guests, the who's who of our elite Boston neighborhood, sat around a table draped in white linen and adorned with lilies that cost more than my monthly car payment. My father, Harold, stood at the head of the table, looking every bit the retired bank manager. My mother, Patricia, sat beside him, her hair sprayed into a rigid helmet of perfection, her smile as fixed as a doll's. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harold announced, his voice carrying that rehearsed boardroom charm. 40 years is a long time. It's a lifetime of building a legacy. And to celebrate, Patricia and I have a special announcement. Next week, we are taking the entire family to Hawaii. 7 days at the Four Seasons in Maui. Another party, just for the Dixons. We're going to celebrate the way we always have, together. The room erupted. My sister, Megan, actually squealed, leaning over to high-five her husband, Derek. I felt a rare, terrifying surge of excitement, a genuine, heart-pounding hope. Hawaii? I hadn't taken a real vacation since I finished college. I worked as a part-time accountant specifically because it allowed me to be flexible for family emergencies. Which, in the Dixon house, meant everything from babysitting to grocery runs. I already began imagining the ocean breeze and, for once, a week where I wasn't the one holding the clipboard. I leaned forward, a smile tugging at my lips. "That sounds incredible, Dad. What time is our flight?" The air at the table suddenly went vacuum-sealed. Harold looked at me as if I had just asked for the keys to his safe in a foreign language. My mother's smile didn't falter, but her eyes went hard. The way they do when a servant speaks out of turn in front of important guests. "Wendy, dear," Harold said, his voice dropping into a patronizing register that made my skin crawl. "You don't need to know the flight time. You aren't part of this trip." I felt the blood drain from my face. 30 pairs of eyes, neighbors, church friends, former colleagues, turned toward me. I felt the heat of their pity, the stinging embarrassment of being corrected like a child in front of an audience of peers. I looked at Megan, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. She was too busy looking at resort photos on her phone. "I don't understand," I stammered, my voice sounding small and fragile. "You said the whole family. Someone has to stay behind and take care of the kids," my mother added, reaching for her wine glass as if the matter were a simple scheduling conflict. Megan and Derek haven't had a real break in years. They need this time together. You have such a flexible schedule, Wendy. It only makes sense for you to stay at their house and keep things running while we're away. You wouldn't want the children to be stressed by a nanny they don't know, would you? But I could come too? We could hire a sitter there? Megan let out a sharp, brittle laugh. "Oh, Wendy, don't be dramatic. You know the kids won't settle for anyone but you. Besides, it's just a week. Think of it as your contribution to the anniversary gift. You're so selfless, everyone says so. Don't spoil the night by being difficult." I looked around the table. No one spoke up for me. No one suggested that a 32-year-old woman deserved a vacation too. My father just cleared his throat and moved on to his next toast, praising Megan's dedication to the family. I sat there for the rest of the night, performing the role they had written for me. I cleared the dessert plates. I refilled the coffee. I laughed when the neighbors made jokes about how lucky I was to get so much quality time with my niece and nephew. But as I drove my 10-year-old Honda Civic home, parking it on the street because Derek's Lexus needed the good spot in my parents' driveway, I realized I wasn't hurt anymore. I was finished. They thought I was staying behind to watch the kids. They thought I had nothing important to do. They had no idea that for 3 years, I had been building an exit strategy. They had no idea about the Canon camera hidden in my closet, or the 12,000 people who knew me as a rising star in the art world. The useful one was about to become the gone one. And I was going to make sure they felt every second of my absence. To understand why I walked away, you have to understand the suffocating architecture of the Dixon family. It's a house built on appearances. My father, Harold, believes that if a lawn is trimmed to the exact quarter-inch, the people inside must be happy. My mother, Patricia, is the COO of the family's reputation. She ensures we look like a page from a high-end lifestyle catalog. In this catalog, my sister Megan is the cover girl. She has everything my parents value: the lawyer husband, the photogenic kids, and a lifestyle that requires constant maintenance. I, on the other hand, am the fine print. I'm the daughter they mention in passing. Oh, Wendy? She's such a help with the kids. They never mention my degree or my clients. They only mention my utility. I am the background noise that makes their music sound better. Growing up, the hierarchy was reinforced with the precision of a scalpel. If Megan had a dance recital and I had a math competition, we went to the recital because art is public, Wendy, and your math is just for you. I thought by being the good daughter who never complained, I was earning a seat at the table. I didn't realize I was just training them to never consider my feelings at all. This reached its peak after Megan had children. Suddenly, my time wasn't mine, it was a resource to be mined. Wendy, the nanny called out. Wendy, we need you to prep the appetizers. I was the unpaid infrastructure of their lives, the one who ensured the white wine was always chilled to exactly 45 degrees. The one time I tried to set a boundary for a work deadline, my mother's voice went cold. Don't be so selfish, Wendy. Your family needs you now. Selfish. That was the word they used whenever I tried to exist as a person instead of a tool. 3 years ago, my life fell apart. My boyfriend of 4 years left me. I love you, Wendy, he said, with pity that felt like a slap, but you're just there. You're like the wallpaper. I need someone with more presence. I was devastated. But a week later, I saw a used Canon DSLR in a pawn shop window for $180. I bought it on a whim. I didn't take pictures of sunsets, I took pictures of the things people ignore. The tired eyes of a bus driver. Sunlight hitting a cracked sidewalk. I felt a kinship with the overlooked, the invisible, the essential. I started an anonymous Instagram called The Invisible Women. I didn't use my name. I just posted the photos. I didn't tell my parents. I knew they'd just ask me to drive a playdate. For 3 years, I lived a double life. By day, I scrubbed pots after the anniversary dinner. By night, I was an artist with 12,000 followers who saw the beauty my parents walked right past. As I stood in that country club, being told I was the designated babysitter for a trip I wasn't invited to, I realized the wallpaper was finally ready to peel itself off the wall. They thought I was free help. They had no idea I was an artist who had just received an email from a gallery in California that would change everything. The morning after the anniversary party, my mother called at 8 a.m. Wendy, Megan is sending the kids' schedule. You'll need to move into their house Sunday night. Oh, and I left laundry in my dryer, could you stop by and fold those first? Your father wants his golf shirts ready for Maui. I didn't argue. I'll take care of it, Mom. Good girl. You're such a lifesaver. I hung up and reached into my closet, past the accounting folders, to my Canon DSLR. For 3 years, I'd been building a secret world. Every time I was babysitting, I was actually capturing the park through a fresh lens. Every time I was helping at a fundraiser, I was documenting the frantic eyes of women trying to out-perfect each other. I opened my laptop to an email from Marcus Coleman, owner of the Coastal Light Gallery in Monterey. Wendy, I've been following the Invisible Women for a year. Your work has a raw, clinical honesty that is incredibly rare. I want you. Your eye for the overlooked is exactly what the West Coast art scene is missing. In the Dixon house, I was a babysitter. In Monterey, I was a visionary. I looked at the laundry my mother wanted folded. I looked at the text from Megan, Oliver, soccer Tuesday 4 o'clock. Needs orange slices. No seeds. The clarity was cold and sharp. If I stayed, I would always be the orange slice girl. I'd spend 40 years ensuring someone else's kids had no seeds in their fruit while my own dreams rotted in the closet. I called the only person who actually saw me, Aunt Ruth. Ruth? They're going to Hawaii. Without me. I know, honey, Ruth said. Your mother called to brag. She said you were delighted to help. I'm not delighted. I'm leaving. Marcus Coleman wants a solo show. I heard Ruth let out a shaky, triumphant breath. Finally. Wendy, I've been waiting 20 years for one of Patricia's daughters to realize that a white colonial house is just a very expensive cage. Come to California. I have a spare room above the studio. I hung up, heart pounding. I was really leaving. But I was a Dixon, and we don't just leave. We make a statement. I opened my mother's laptop, she'd forgotten to log out. I searched my own name. The results were a map of my own insignificance. Email from Patricia to Megan, don't worry about the sitter. I already told Wendy. She's a bit pouty, but she'll do it. It's like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do. Reply from Megan, totally. It's kind of sad how much she lives for our kids, but hey, it works out for us. More room in the SUV for our luggage. Free help. Kind of sad. The last thread of loyalty snapped with the precision of a scalpel. I screenshotted the email and sent it to myself. I wasn't the useful daughter anymore. I was an asset being exploited. And I was about to show them exactly how much free help costs when the bill finally comes due. The realization that you are considered staff by your own blood is a unique kind of trauma. For 32 years, I'd told myself they relied on me because I was the reliable one. I had framed my own exploitation as a badge of honor. Reading those words, free help. She should be grateful, was like having the cataract of family loyalty surgically removed. I went to my apartment and started to pack. I didn't take much. I left the world's best aunt apron on the counter, a glittery tombstone for the woman I was leaving behind. I only took my clothes, my camera gear, and my grandmother's box. But I didn't leave that night. I had to wait for the Hawaii trip to begin. I wanted them to be 3,000 miles away when they realized the wallpaper had peeled itself off the wall. The week leading up to their departure was a masterclass in Dixon entitlement. Wendy, pick up the dry cleaning. Wendy, Dad needs his prescriptions. Wendy, scrub the grill after we leave. I did it all. I was the perfect, invisible servant. I even helped Megan pick out a $300 swimsuit for a beach I wasn't allowed to visit. On Sunday, the family gathered at Megan's house. Harold and Patricia were radiant in their travel linens. All right, Wendy, my father said, patting me like a favored golden retriever. The emergency numbers are on the fridge. We'll call when we land. Don't let the house get messy. Have a wonderful trip, Dad, I said, my voice as smooth as glass. My mother hugged me, her perfume expensive and overwhelming. Try to keep the children quiet, dear. We don't want to come home to a chaotic house. I'll keep everything exactly as it should be, Mom, I promised. I watched them pull out of the driveway. I stood in the silence of their 5-bedroom home. I walked inside and looked at the 6-page list of instructions Derek had left for me. I didn't read it. I made a cup of expensive coffee, sat at the marble island, and opened my laptop. I sent one email to Marcus Coleman, "I'm coming. Let's sign the contract." Then, I went to my mother's anniversary group chat. The one with 30 neighbors, church friends, and colleagues. I typed, "Hi everyone. Just wanted to let you know the Dixons have left for Hawaii. Since I was told I'm not part of the family and am only here as free help, I've decided to take their advice. I've resigned. I'm moving to California to open my art exhibition. I've left the kids at the house. If anyone needs to reach my parents, they are at the Four Seasons in Maui. I'm sure they won't mind the interruption." I attached the screenshot of my mother's free help email. Click. Send. I didn't stop there. I called Maria, the nanny Megan had let go to save money. "Hi, Maria. It's Wendy. I'm leaving for California. If you want your job back, call Megan. She's 30,000 feet over the Pacific and her kids are alone. You might want to ask for a raise. Triple, at least." I walked out of the house. I didn't lock the door. I got into my Honda Civic, my Canon in the passenger seat, and drove away. I didn't feel dramatic. I felt like a building that had finally been stripped of its scaffolding. By the time their flight landed, the Dixon reputation would be in ruins. The neighborhood would know the truth. And for the first time in my life, I wouldn't be the one cleaning up the mess. The drive from Boston to California is 3,000 miles of silence, and for me, it was 3,000 miles of pure, unadulterated oxygen. Every time I crossed a state line, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, I felt a physical layer of Dixon expectation peel away like dead skin. I didn't have to worry about orange slices, calligraphy, or Derek's tax returns. I stayed in cheap motels and ate at greasy diners where no one knew I was the useful daughter. Most importantly, I took photos. In Nebraska, I photographed the lonely beauty of grain elevators against a purple sky. In Colorado, the indifferent grace of the Rockies. I was no longer taking pictures of the invisible. I was taking pictures of the unstoppable. My phone remained off for 48 hours. When I finally turned it on in Arizona, it nearly vibrated out of my hand. 112 notifications. The anniversary group chat had become a digital wildfire. My mother's reputation was being dismantled in real time by the very people she had tried to impress. Neighbor 1, "Patricia, is this true? Calling your own daughter free help is beyond the pale." Former colleague, "Harold, I'm disappointed. You uninvited your daughter from a family trip so she could babysit for free?" Then came the messages from the family. The tone was no longer patronizing, it was panicked. "Megan, Wendy. The nanny threatened to call social services. Dad is losing his mind. Call me. Mother, everyone at the church has seen that email. Tell them it was a hack. We'll even pay for a separate room in Maui. Father, your behavior is unacceptable and childish. Turn around and go back to Megan's house immediately." I didn't feel the old, familiar urge to fix the mess. I felt a strange, clinical satisfaction. I deleted the group chat. I blocked them all. I called Aunt Ruth. "I'm in Arizona," I said, watching a hawk circle the red desert rocks. "Good," Ruth said. "The hawk sees more than the pigeon, Wendy. Marcus has seen the free help receipts. He said any family that treats an artist like you as staff deserves to find out exactly how expensive an empty house is." "Are they still in Hawaii?" "Oh, yes," Ruth chuckled. "But they aren't enjoying it. My sister is spending the whole time in the hotel room trying to delete comments on her Facebook. She blamed me for corrupting you. I told her I didn't corrupt you, I just gave you a mirror. She didn't like what she saw." I reached Carmel by the Sea on Wednesday evening. If Boston is a place of rigid lines, Carmel is a place of fog, salt, and beautiful, crooked cypress trees. Aunt Ruth's Cafe, the Ceramic Cup, was a blue-shuttered building that smelled of espresso and damp earth. Ruth was waiting on the porch in a clay-stained apron. She didn't look like a disappointment, she looked like a queen. She hugged me, and for the first time, a hug didn't feel like a demand for service. It felt like a harbor. "Your room is ready," she said. "And Marcus is expecting us at the gallery tomorrow." That night, I slept to the sound of the Pacific instead of my mother's voice. I realized the Dixons hadn't just lost a babysitter. They had lost their invisible woman, the one who made their lives work so they could pretend to be perfect. As I looked at my Canon on the nightstand, I realized the real exhibition hadn't even started yet. The Dixon family was about to see exactly what useful Wendy had been looking at for 3 years. And I was going to make sure the world saw it, too. The Coastal Light Gallery was nothing like the Dixon home. It was a space of white walls, natural light, and a profound, intentional silence. It didn't scream, "Look at me." It whispered, "Understand me." Marcus Coleman was waiting for us. He didn't look at my scuffed shoes or ask if I was flexible. He looked at my work. I laid out the prints of the invisible women, the janitors, the vendors, the scaffolding of society. Marcus walked around the table twice. He didn't speak for 10 minutes. It wasn't the silence of the Dixon house, where I waited for a command. It was the silence of a man finally seeing me. "You have a clinical eye, Wendy," he said. "But a romantic heart. Most photographers try to make things look beautiful. You've made them look real." He looked up. "Ruth told me your family calls you useful. They're wrong. You're essential." He pushed a folder across the table. "A solo show in August, the architecture of the overlooked." We'd priced the centerpiece at $3,500. $3,500. For one moment I'd captured while my family thought I was staring at walls. I thought about the $100 check my parents gave me for my 30th birthday. I signed the contract. "Welcome to the light, Wendy," Marcus said. The next 2 months were a creative fever. I worked mornings at Ruth's Cafe, where tourists called me by my name. "Thanks, Wendy." It was a small thing, but each time, a piece of the invisible woman dissolved. In the afternoons, I was the main character of my own life. But the Dixons hadn't gone away. They'd returned from Hawaii to a neighborhood looking at them with disgust. The free help email was now local legend. Megan was forced to hire 2 nannies, and the cost was causing friction with Derek. My mother was no longer the chair of her bridge club. Reputation is fragile. When you build it on exploitation, it only takes one missing paperclip to bring the house down. My father sent an email in July, "Wendy. We have been patient. We have allowed you this break. But Megan is struggling. It is time to come home. If you return now, we will agree to never mention the email incident again. We will forgive you." "They'll forgive me," I said to Ruth, laughing until I cried. "They'll forgive me for being humiliated by them." "They don't know how to exist without a scapegoat," Ruth said. "But you've already learned how to fly." Opening night was set for August 15th. Marcus coordinated a feature with Carmel magazine. The cover wasn't the useful daughter with a messy bun. It was Wendy Dixon, the artist. The headline, "The Visionary from the Shadows, How Wendy Dixon Learned to See the Overlooked." The article included my quote, "My family didn't see an artist, they saw a tool." This exhibition is my resignation from that role. I am no longer part of their architecture. I knew they'd see it. In the digital age, a magazine cover in Carmel is a notification in Boston. The fuse was lit. The Dixon family was about to see exactly what free help looked like when it was framed in Coastal Light. Opening night at Coastal Light Gallery was a sea of black linen and the electric hum of success. 15 of my photographs hung on the walls. By 8:00 p.m., red dots appeared next to the placards like drops of blood. Most were already sold. I stood in my navy silk dress, talking to a critic from the San Francisco Chronicle. "There's an architectural quality to your portraits," he said. "You've captured the structure of their exhaustion." "I think we only see the structure of things when we aren't allowed to be part of them," I replied. "I spent my life in the scaffolding. I know how the building is held up." Then, the doors swung open. The Dixon family didn't just walk in, they staged an invasion. My mother, Patricia, led the charge in her power trench. Megan was behind her, clutching a diaper bag like a weapon, and Derek looked embarrassed but determined. My father stayed by the door, his face a mask of disappointment. The ambient jazz died. The appearances experts had arrived, but they were in the wrong room. Wendy, my mother's voice cut through the air. We have been calling you. Megan has an emergency. She is overwhelmed, and you are here, playing at this. She waved a hand at $14,000 worth of art. She didn't see the talent, she just saw a hobby keeping her servant away from her chores. Marcus Coleman stepped forward, cold and professional. Can I help you? This is a private opening. I am her mother. Patricia snapped. Wendy is needed at home. Megan is pregnant again, and she cannot manage 2 toddlers without help. The critic raised an eyebrow. The collectors turned to watch the spectacle. Megan pushed forward, eyes welling with performative tears. Wendy, please. I'm so tired. We'll pay for your flight. We'll even give you a raise on your allowance. An allowance? Mrs. Petton, the collector who bought my centerpiece, stepped into the light. Is this the artist you're talking to? Or a servant you've misplaced? My father spoke from the door. This isn't your business, ma'am. This is family. No, I said, stepping into the center of the circle. I felt a calm I hadn't known I possessed. This isn't family. This is a labor dispute. I looked at my mother. I'm not playing at this, Mom. I've made more money in 3 hours than you've given me in 10 years. I am not going back to Boston to be free help. I turned to Megan. Congratulations on the baby. I hope it's healthy. But I am not its nanny. I am an artist. If you need help, hire a professional. I am no longer available for the family discount. I've resigned from the role of useful Wendy. Wendy, how can you be so cruel? My mother gasped. We gave you a home. We gave you a life. You gave me a room in exchange for a lifetime of labor, I said. You didn't give me a life. You gave me a schedule. And I've officially checked out. Marcus, please show my former employers the door. The word employers hit them like a physical blow. Marcus signaled security. My father saw the cameras and the journalist taking notes. He realized the Dixon reputation was being incinerated in real time. They left. Megan was crying, my mother was shouting about ingratitude. As the door closed, Mrs. Petton raised her glass. To the invisible woman who finally learned to develop her own film. The gallery erupted in applause. I had finally stopped being the wallpaper. Once you see the architecture of your own life, you can never go back to being part of the decor. The aftermath of the gallery ambush wasn't just a social scandal, it was the total psychological collapse of the Dixon hierarchy. The Dixons flew back to Boston, but the appearances they'd spent 40 years building were gone. The Carmel magazine piece went viral, sparking a global conversation on the domestic exploitation of the modern woman. In their hometown, the Dixons became a cautionary tale. My mother was asked to step down from her church committee. Your values don't align with our mission, they told her. The irony was poetic, she had spent her life judging others for their lack of class, only to be cast out for her own lack of character. Megan and Derek's marriage began to buckle. Without me there to absorb the friction, they had to actually parent their own children. They had to realize their golden life was held together by the labor of someone they had mocked. Aunt Ruth told me my mother was calling her every night, screaming about traitors. She says you poisoned the neighborhood, Wendy, Ruth said. She still doesn't understand that she's the one who held the bottle. Psychologically, my family was a textbook case of parentification. I was the daughter who took on the emotional and physical labor of the adults so they could play act their roles as mogul and socialite. The scapegoat is a vital organ in a dysfunctional family. By blaming me for every rowdy child or late dinner, they never had to look at their own failures. When I left, they had to start blaming each other. Marcus Coleman found me in the gallery a week later. The bus stop piece just sold for $5,000 to a museum in San Francisco, he said. You're an established voice now, Wendy. The check felt like more than money, it felt like a restorative justice payment. I spent that month in quiet peace. I worked the morning shift at the cafe because I liked being Wendy who makes coffee as much as Wendy the artist. I liked being valued for who I was, not just what I could do for free. My family hadn't just lost a babysitter, they had lost their only witness. They were now alone in a house of mirrors, and they didn't like what they saw. Megan texted me once, the new nannies keep quitting. They say I'm difficult. Mom just cries about the church. Why did you do this? Everything was fine before. I didn't reply. I didn't need to explain that fine for her was suffocating for me. I simply blocked the number. I was no longer the useful one. I was the person who had finally learned to use her voice. And I was never going to be silent again. The transition from scapegoat to individual is not a single event, it is a slow process of shedding ghost skin. For weeks, I would wake up at 6 a.m. in my room above the cafe and panic because I wasn't at Megan's house. I'd worry if the silver was polished or if Oliver had his orange slices. Then, I'd see the Pacific Ocean through my window and remember, I am no longer the keeper of the orange slices. I am the keeper of my own life. My second exhibition, Boundaries, opened in the spring of 2025. It was a study of the word no. It featured photographs of garden fences, closed doors, and the sharp line where the land meets the sea. It sold out on the first night. I haven't been back to Boston. I don't think I ever will. The white colonial house and the manicured lawn feel like a movie I've already finished watching. I heard Megan and Derek moved to a smaller house because the two-nanny lifestyle was unsustainable. My mother still chairs her committees, but she does it online now, she can't face the whispers in the grocery store. But my father, he surprised me. Last month, an email arrived. 3 sentences. Wendy. I saw the magazine feature. I didn't know you were seeing things that way. I'm sorry we didn't look at the screen, we only looked at the help. You were always more than a paperclip, Wendy. I'm starting to understand that now. I didn't reply. I didn't feel a rush of forgiveness. I felt a sense of completion. The apology was for him, to ease his own guilt in an empty house. My healing didn't depend on his recognition, it depended on mine. I'm 33 now. I have a studio in Monterey with floor-to-ceiling windows and a family of my own, Ruth, Marcus, and a community of artists who know my name without needing a service from me. I am no longer the useful one. I am the visible one. Setting a boundary isn't an act of war, it's an act of architecture. It's deciding where you end and the world begins. It's the realization that you cannot be the scaffolding for someone else's ego and still build a house of your own. If you are the useful one in your family, if you are the wallpaper, I want you to look in the mirror. You are not a tool. You are not free help. You are the architect of your own life. And sometimes, the most extraordinary thing you can do isn't helping out. It's walking away. It's choosing to be an artist instead of an asset. I am Wendy Dixon. I am an artist. I am a woman who knows her worth down to the penny. And I am finally, beautifully, undeniably visible. I'll see you at the opening. And this time, I won't be washing the glasses.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe Family Files for more.